The story takes place in New York during the 2000s. Our main character is Peter Parker, a nerdy guy who is constantly bullied by everyone, even the bus driver. However, his crush, the red-headed Mary Jane MJ, kindly stops the bus for him. Today, they are both on a school trip to Columbia University. Peter's best friend, Harry Osborn, arrives with his wealthy father, Norman Osborn. Norman recognizes Peter's talent in science and mentions that he himself is also a scientist. Inside the university, Flash, the school bully and MJ's boyfriend, continues to torment Peter. Harry encourages Peter to steal MJ away from Flash, but Peter is too shy to do so. Instead, Harry decides to pursue MJ himself. During a visit to the university's laboratory, a scientist shows them genetically enhanced super spiders. MJ notices that one of the spiders is missing. Finally gathering his courage, Peter asks MJ if she can take some pictures for the school magazine. Just as they're talking, the missing super spider suddenly descends from the ceiling and bites Peter on the hand. Meanwhile, Norman showcases Oscorp's gliders to the military. However, the general shows interest only in the human strength enhancer. Unfortunately, this enhancer has some side effects, including aggression and murderous rage. The general gives Norman a 2-week deadline to resolve the issue. Peter returns home to live with his Uncle Ben and Aunt May, as his parents have passed away. Feeling unwell, he immediately goes to bed. At Oscorp, under pressure, Norman ignores Dr. Strom's warnings and tests the strength enhancer on himself. As the enhancer takes effect, Norman experiences violent shaking. Dr. Strom intervenes and performs CPR, successfully reviving him. In a twisted show of gratitude, Norman kills Dr. Strom. The next morning, Peter wakes up to find that his eyesight has improved and his body has become noticeably more muscular. When he puts on his glasses, he realizes he no longer needs them. As he prepares to approach MJ, he sees her arguing with her alcoholic father, who belittles her. Before Peter can intervene, MJ's friends arrive and take her away. Elsewhere, Norman tells Harry that he cannot remember what happened the previous night. Just then, his assistant enters and informs him that Dr. Strom has died, and the flight suit and glider have been stolen. Back at school, MJ slips, but Peter catches her, saving both her and her lunch after several attempts. After she walks away, Peter accidentally shoots sticky webbing from his wrist, hitting Flash with a lunch tray. Flash charges at Peter, ready to fight, but Peter's spider sense kicks in. He dodges all of Flash's punches with ease, seeing everything in slow motion. "I wouldn't want to fight me either," Peter remarks before punching Flash and sending him flying. Harry is impressed, but MJ and the others are frightened. Peter runs off to a quiet alley where he begins to notice even more strange changes in his body. Changes that have nothing to do with puberty. He discovers that he can stick to walls with his fingers and joyfully climbs a building, leaping across rooftops with newfound agility. At one point, he attempts different hand gestures like those in Naruto until he successfully shoots webs from his wrists. Later at home, Peter once again witnesses MJ being berated by her alcoholic father. He goes outside and talks to her about their dreams. Peter wants to become a photographer, while MJ dreams of becoming an actress. Their conversation is cut short when Flash pulls up in a new car, and MJ excitedly leaves with him. Peter sits down and starts sketching ideas for a costume, showcasing his creativity. He also tests his web powers, unaware that Aunt May is checking on him. Little does she know, Peter is secretly shooting white webbing from his body. Worried about Peter's odd behavior, Uncle Ben offers to drive him to the library. Before they leave, Uncle Ben gives Peter some advice, delivering one of the most iconic lines in superhero history. "With great power comes great responsibility." Peter brushes off the lecture and leaves. But instead of going to the library, he heads to a local wrestling ring. At the ring, the reigning champion, Bonesaw, is offering $3,000 to anyone who can last 3 minutes against him. Peter signs up under the name the Human Spider, but the announcer changes it to Spider-Man, drawing boos from the crowd. The cage descends and Bonesaw enters. Using his webs and enhanced strength, Peter defeats Bonesaw in just 2 minutes. However, the manager only gives him $100, claiming that he didn't last the full 3 minutes. As Peter leaves, a thief robs the manager. Peter chooses not to stop him, saying, "I missed the part where that's my problem." Outside, Peter finds a crowd gathered around Uncle Ben, who has been shot by a carjacker. Uncle Ben looks at Peter and softly says his name before passing away. Devastated and enraged, Peter swings through the city, clumsily at first, determined to find the killer and seek justice. Peter follows the carjacker to an abandoned house, where he confronts and beats him, only to realize it's the same man he had previously allowed to escape. In a panic, the man trips and falls to his death. Peter is devastated, realizing that his inaction led to Uncle Ben's death. He breaks the tragic news to Aunt May, who is overcome with grief. Time passes, and Peter and his classmates graduate. Norman Osborn congratulates Peter on his achievement. Meanwhile, Harry witnesses MJ breaking up with Flash. Peter begins using his powers to help the community, stopping criminals and gradually earning recognition from the public. This attracts the attention of J. Jonah Jameson, the influential editor-in-chief of the Daily Bugle, who sees Spider-Man as a menace. Jameson puts out an advertisement offering payment for photos of Spider-Man. Elsewhere, Peter sees MJ leaving a diner and discovers that she is now dating Harry. Peter and Harry have become roommates, sharing an apartment. Although Norman offers to help Peter find a job, Peter declines, expressing his desire to succeed on his own. Instead, he follows his passion for photography, capturing photos of himself as Spider-Man. Jameson, partly impressed, publishes the photos but still runs a headline labeling Spider-Man a threat. Peter's objections go ignored. At Oscorp, Norman celebrates the company's recent success, only to be blindsided by the board's decision to sell the company and force his resignation. Later, during a company-sponsored festival, Harry and MJ spend time together. Peter watches them, sensing a strange unease. Suddenly, a man in a green suit arrives on a glider. It's the Green Goblin. He causes chaos, throwing pumpkin bombs into a building and killing the board members inside. Just as the Goblin turns toward MJ, Spider-Man appears. A fierce battle erupts between them, taking to the skies. Spider-Man damages the Goblin's glider, forcing him to retreat. Spider-Man then saves MJ, and when she asks who he is, he simply replies that he's just there to help. That evening, Harry apologizes to Peter for pursuing MJ, knowing Peter has feelings for her. Meanwhile, Norman begins experiencing hallucinations and starts conversing with his dark alter ego, which pushes him to eliminate Spider-Man. At the Daily Bugle, Jameson accuses Spider-Man of being responsible for the festival attack. The Green Goblin suddenly crashes in and demands to know who takes Spider-Man's pictures. Despite the threat, Jameson refuses to reveal Peter's identity. Just then, Spider-Man arrives, but the Goblin knocks him out with gas and takes him away. When Spider-Man regains consciousness, the Goblin attempts to persuade him to join forces, claiming they are not so different. Spider-Man refuses, and the Goblin leaves. That night, Spider-Man visits MJ after her audition and asks her out to dinner. She declines, explaining she already has plans with Harry. As MJ walks away, Peter sees some criminals stalking her. He follows them and intervenes when they trap her in an alley. Spider-Man defeats the thugs. MJ approaches him, partially removes his mask, and they share a passionate kiss. The next day, a building catches fire. Spider-Man rushes in and saves a baby. He hears another scream and re-enters, only to be ambushed by the Green Goblin, who attacks him with pumpkin-shaped shurikens. Injured, Spider-Man escapes. Later, Peter, Harry, MJ, and Aunt May prepare for Thanksgiving dinner. Norman arrives and meets MJ for the first time. Meanwhile, Spider-Man sneaks into the apartment to tend to his wounds. As they prepare to eat, a drop of Peter's blood falls to the floor. Norman notices it and becomes suspicious. He scans the room, but Peter has already slipped out the window. Moments later, Peter re-enters through the front door and joins them for dinner. Norman sees Peter's wound and immediately realizes his secret. Norman abruptly leaves, claiming he has urgent business. At home, he converses with his darker self, who urges him to attack Peter's heart, his loved ones. Later that night, Aunt May kneels to pray. Suddenly, the Green Goblin smashes through the window and terrifies her. Peter rushes to the hospital to check on her, realizing that the Goblin now knows who he is. MJ visits Peter at the hospital and admits that she's in love with Spider-Man. Meanwhile, Harry returns home to hear his father's maniacal laughter. Norman, spiraling deeper into madness, shares his disgust for humanity with his son. At the hospital, Aunt May encourages Peter to open his heart to MJ. Determined, Peter tries to call her, but the Green Goblin answers the phone. He challenges Peter to save MJ. MJ wakes up tied to the top of the Queensboro Bridge. The Goblin also holds a tram full of schoolchildren. When Spider-Man arrives, the Goblin presents him with an impossible choice: save MJ or the children. Then he releases both at once. Spider-Man first grabs MJ, and then uses his webbing to save the tram. As the webbing begins to tear, he lowers MJ down a steel cable. The Goblin swoops in to attack, but the people on the bridge begin throwing objects at him, declaring their support for Spider-Man. The distraction allows Spider-Man to rescue everyone safely. The Goblin captures Spider-Man and drags him into an abandoned mansion. There, they engage in a brutal fight. The Goblin nearly overpowers Peter, but Spider-Man fights back. Norman reveals his identity, begging Peter for mercy. Just as Peter hesitates, Norman activates a hidden command to summon his glider behind Peter. But Peter's spider sense warns him in time, and he jumps out of the way, causing the glider to impale Norman instead. With great sorrow, Peter carries Norman's body home. Harry walks in and finds Spider-Man standing over his father's body, mistakenly believing that Spider-Man killed him. At Norman's funeral, Harry vows revenge on Spider-Man, telling Peter he'll make him pay. Peter, heartbroken, reflects on how his powers continue to endanger those he loves. MJ approaches him after the funeral and confesses her love, kissing him. But Peter, worried about her safety, gently rejects her and insists they can only be friends. As Peter walks away, he remembers Uncle Ben's words: "With great power comes great responsibility." With that in mind, he dons the mask once again and swings across the city, fully embracing his destiny as Spider-Man.